the stranger among warriors. The jungle was alive with strange sounds. Bird-like creatures screeched in the trees and the air was heavy with mist. A lone human named David walked carefully through the tall grass. His clothes torn, his face tired. He had been wandering for hours after his ship broke down, searching only for water and a safe place to rest. Then he heard it. Drums deep and powerful. Shaking the ground beneath his feet, voices rose with the drums, chanting in a strange language he did not understand. David froze, his heart beating faster. "Maybe a village," he whispered, hope rising in his chest. "Maybe they can help me." He pushed forward. Moving toward the sound, the trees opened to reveal a wide clearing. At the center stood a massive stone arena, glowing with firelight. Hundreds of tall, fierce women with bronze-colored skin and glowing tattoos filled the stands. They were armed with spears, swords, and armor made of bone and metal. Their faces were painted in bright war patterns. They looked powerful, dangerous, and proud. David's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anything like them. Alien warrior women, stronger, taller, and more terrifying than anything he imagined. The drums stopped. The crowd turned as one. A silence swept over the arena as every pair of glowing eyes fell on him. The human outsider who had just stumbled into their sacred place, David took a step back. "Wait, I didn't mean to." But before he could finish, guards with spears surrounded him. They shoved him forward into the circle of fire that burned at the center of the arena. The crowd roared in laughter, their voices echoing like thunder. One of the women shouted in a voice that shook the ground, "Look! A human, weak, small, fragile." The others joined in, mocking him with laughter. But then another voice rose. Calm and commanding, it was the elder, the leader of the Amazons, standing tall with a golden staff in her hand. "He has entered the trial of selection," she declared. "No outsider may leave once they step into the circle." David blinked, his throat dry. "Trial? What trial?" he whispered. But the answer came quickly. The elder raised her staff high. "The trial of strength decides the breeding male. Only the strongest genes may shape the future of our tribe. The victor shall be chosen by the Amazons themselves." The crowd cheered wildly, stamping their feet. The ground shook as the warrior women shouted and clashed their weapons together. David felt his knees weaken. Breeding male? Chosen? No, I don't belong here. But the guards would not let him leave. The circle of fire closed around him, and from the other side stepped a warrior. She was tall, her muscles carved like stone, her hair braided with silver rings. In her hand she carried a long spear that glowed faintly under the firelight. The crowd chanted her name again and again. "Sira! Sira! Sira!" She raised her weapon high, her eyes blazing with confidence. To her, the fight was already over. David stumbled back, raising his hands. "I don't want to fight, please," he said, his voice trembling. But no one listened. The elder struck her staff into the ground. "Begin." Sira lunged forward, the spear cutting the air. David dropped to the ground in fear, rolling across the sand. The spear missed his chest by an inch, striking sparks from the stone. The crowd gasped, then roared louder. To them, it looked like skill to David. It was pure accident. He scrambled to his feet. His heart racing. Sira came again, faster, stronger. David backed away, tripping over a piece of broken weapon lying in the sand. His hand closed around it by instinct, a cracked shield. Half buried in the dirt, Sira struck again. David raised the shield without thinking. The spear slammed into it, splintering the wood. The shock threw him backward, but the spear was stuck for a moment. The crowd gasped again. The human was still alive. David's chest heaved as he looked at the shield in his hands. His mind screamed, "I shouldn't be here. I'll die here." But something deep inside whispered louder, "Stand, fight, survive." The warrior woman pulled her spear free. Snarling in frustration, the crowd shouted louder, some cheering for Sira, others now curious about the human. They began to whisper among themselves. How is he still standing? He has no strength, but he does not fall. David took another step back, sweat dripping down his face. He whispered to himself, "I don't belong here. I just wanted water. But if I don't fight, I'll die." The drums thundered again. Sira circled him like a predator. David gripped the broken shield tighter. His body trembling, the trial of selection had begun. And in the fire-lit arena of the Amazons, a human stranger was about to change the fate of a galaxy. Trial by strength. The drums pounded like thunder. The fire circle burned brighter, painting shadows across the tall stone walls. David stood trembling in the sand, gripping the broken shield in his hands. His heart raced so hard he thought it might break his chest. Across from him, Sira raised her spear again. Her tattoos glowed with strange light, her eyes sharp like blades. The crowd chanted her name, their voices echoing into the night. Sira! Sira, Sira. David swallowed hard. He whispered to himself, I can't win this. I shouldn't even be here. But the guards stood at the edges, blocking every path of escape. The elder's staff struck the ground again. The voice boomed through the arena. The human faces, the trial of strength. The weak shall fall, the strong shall rise. Sira lunged, her spear cutting the air. David raised the shield too late. The tip slashed across his arm. Leaving a burning line of blood, he cried out, stumbling back. His legs shaking, the crowd laughed, calling him fragile, but then something strange happened. David didn't stop. He didn't collapse. He pressed the shield tighter against his body and stepped forward again. The Amazons murmured in surprise. He bleeds, but he stands. Sira circled him, her smile sharp. She struck again. This time aiming low, David jumped back clumsily. Tripping over the sand, he fell hard, the shield slipping from his grasp. The crowd cheered, thinking it was over. Sira lifted her spear high for the final strike. In desperation, David grabbed a handful of sand and threw it blindly. The grains hit Sira's eyes, making her hiss and stumble back. The crowd gasped. No one had dared such a dirty move before. It looked like strategy. But to David it was only panic. He scrambled up, grabbing the broken shield again. Sira wiped her eyes, rage flashing across her face. She attacked with fury, striking again and again. Each blow splintered the shield further. David blocked, stumbled, rolled, his body moving only by instinct. Every second he survived made the crowd louder. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. The human lives! The human fights! Finally, Sira thrust her spear straight at his chest. David twisted at the last moment. The spear missed and struck the ground. In that instant, David slammed the shield forward with all his strength. The edge struck Sira across the jaw. She staggered, dropping her weapon. The arena fell silent. For a breath, no one moved. A human had struck down one of their warriors. Sira fell to her knees, dazed, her weapon lying in the sand. David stood above her, panting, holding the broken shield like it was a sword. His body was shaking. His eyes wide with disbelief, he whispered, I hit her. She fell. The crowd erupted into chaos, half shouted in fury, demanding her to rise, half shouted in amazement, cheering the human's survival. The elder raised her staff, silencing them. The human does not fall. The trial continues. David lowered the shield slowly, his breath heavy. He looked around at the faces in the crowd. Some were filled with hate, some with shock, but one thing was certain. They were no longer laughing. Whispers spread through the stands. How does he live? He fights with no honor, but he fights still. Perhaps his blood is not weak after all. David looked at Sira, who now stood again, her jaw bruised, her eyes burning. She lifted her spear, but the elder raised her hand. Enough. The human has proven strength. Another challenger shall rise. Sira hissed in anger, but obeyed. Stepping back into the shadows, the crowd shifted, eyes turning toward the next warrior. She was taller, stronger, carrying twin blades that glowed like fire. The drums began again. The chants rose. David's heart sank. He had survived one battle by luck, but the trial of strength was far from over. He whispered to himself, I don't want this. I don't belong here. But if I stop, I die. The circle of fire burned higher. The next Amazon stepped into the sand. Her eyes locked on him, and the crowd, once mocking, now leaned forward in silence. They wanted to see if the human would fall or rise. The hidden power. The arena was still trembling with noise. The Amazons had laughed at first, but now their voices carried doubt. David, the fragile outsider, had survived one warrior's spear. He had even knocked Sira to the ground, and now a second challenger stepped into the fire circle. She was taller than the first. Her skin shimmered with silver tattoos, and in her hands she held two short blades glowing faintly red. Her movements were faster, sharper, more dangerous. The crowd cheered her name, their voices rising like a storm. Kelra! 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 David's knees shook. His body already ached from cuts, bruises, and exhaustion, but he raised the cracked shield again, even though it was nearly split in two. He whispered, I can't do this, but I have no choice. Kelra wasted no time. She rushed forward, blades flashing, David blocked with the shield. Sparks flying, each strike pushed him back. Step by step, his arms burned, his chest throbbed. But still he moved, still he stood. The crowd leaned forward. They had expected him to fall in seconds, but seconds became minutes, and every breath he took seemed to defy their laws. Kelra struck again, slicing across his shoulder. David cried out in pain, nearly dropping the shield. Blood ran down his arm, hot and sticky. The crowd cheered for her, sure the fight was ending, but then David did something no one expected. He stepped forward, not back, not away, forward. He slammed the broken shield into Kelra's chest. It wasn't graceful, it wasn't skillful, but it was raw force. Kelra stumbled, her eyes wide. The crowd gasped. Humans were supposed to be weak, but this one refused to fall. Even wounded, even bleeding, he pushed forward. Kelra hissed and slashed again. David dodged clumsily, rolling across the sand. The crowd thought it was training, clever skill. But David was only moving because he refused to die. He grabbed a piece of broken spear lying in the dust. It was short, cracked, and useless to an Amazon. But in his hand it became hope. When Kelra lunged again, he thrust forward wildly. The spearhead cut across her arm. She shouted in shock, dropping one blade. The crowd erupted in chaos. Some shouted that it was dishonor. Others whispered that it was fate. The elder raised her staff but said nothing. Her eyes were fixed on David now. Sharp and curious, David gasped for air, his chest heaving, his body begged him to collapse. But something inside him kept pushing. Not strength, not training, stamina. The human spirit that refused to stop. Kelra circled again, cautious now. She slashed with her remaining blade. David blocked with the cracked shield. The wood split in half and fell away, leaving his arms bare. The crowd cheered, thinking it was done, but David didn't stop. He grabbed the broken piece of shield and swung it like a club. It smashed into Kelra's leg, sending her stumbling for the first time. The Amazon stopped cheering. They stared in silence as Kelra fell to her knees. Her blade dropped to the sand. David stood over her, panting, bleeding, shaking, but still standing. The elder raised her staff high. Her voice cut through the silence. The human bleeds, but the human does not fall. The trial continues. The crowd exploded again. Some shouted in fury, demanding Kelra rise and kill him. Others shouted in amazement. He should be dead. Why does he stand? His body is broken, but he does not stop. Perhaps his blood is different. The alien females leaned forward in their seats. Their glowing eyes fixed on him, whispers passed from mouth to mouth. He does not fight like us, yet he endures. Only his kind could survive like this. David did not hear them. He only heard his own breath, ragged and shallow. He whispered to himself, I just need to live one more minute. One more fight. One more chance. The guards pulled Kelra's body from the circle. Another warrior stepped forward, bigger than the others, her armor shining like steel. The crowd cheered again, hungry for more. But something had changed. They were no longer laughing at him. They were watching him. Watching the human who bled but did not break. David clenched the broken shield piece tighter. His arms trembled, his legs wobbled. Yet still he stood. And as the drums began again, the Amazons whispered a word that spread through the crowd like fire. Hidden power. The trial of strength was no longer just entertainment. It was becoming prophecy. The chosen moment. The fire circle burned brighter than before. Smoke curled upward into the dark jungle sky. David stood swaying in the sand, his body covered with cuts and bruises. His chest rose and fell fast, every breath like fire. He had survived 2 warriors already, but now, the arena prepared for the true test. The champion of the Amazon stepped forward. She was taller than the others. Her armor made of silver plates that glowed under the flames. Her long braids swayed behind her like whips. In her hand she carried a war staff, carved with symbols of victory. The crowd roared her name with pride. Vera! 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 David's heart sank. This was no ordinary warrior. This was their champion, the one no man, no alien had ever defeated. He whispered, I can't fight her. I can barely stand. But the circle of fire gave no escape. The elder raised her staff, her voice thundered. The final trial decides the chosen. Let strength decide the future. Farah charged, her staff spinning like lightning. David lifted his broken shield piece, but the first strike sent it flying from his hands. The crowd cheered, certain the human would end here. The champion struck again. David barely rolled aside. the staff slamming into the sand with a crack that shook the ground. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing a shard of broken spear. It was weak, cracked, almost useless, but in his hands it was the only thing between life and death. Vera circled him, her eyes sharp. "You are small, weak. You should be dead," she said in her deep voice. David swallowed, whispering back, "I should, but I'm not." She struck again. Her staff swept across the circle like a storm. David ducked, the wind of the strike almost knocking him off his feet. He swung his shard wildly. It barely scratched her armor. The crowd laughed, shouting insults at the human, but something strange happened. David did not stop. He came forward again, his eyes burning with desperation. Each time Vera struck, he dodged, clumsily, awkwardly, but just enough to survive. The minutes dragged on. The crowd grew restless. Why was the human still standing? Sweat poured down David's face, his arms trembled, but he kept moving. Every time he should have fallen, he rose again. Every time he should have given up, he pushed forward, and slowly, the laughter faded, replaced by silence. The Amazons watched closely now. They had fought many males before. Strong ones, fast ones, skilled ones. But none had lasted this long. None had fought with such raw will. Vera roared. Spinning her staff for the final blow, she leapt high, aiming to crush him in one strike. David stumbled back, tripping on the sand. The staff came down with the force of thunder, but fate twisted in that instant. David fell backward. The staff smashed into the ground just inches from his head. The stone cracked. The staff stuck for a second, and in that moment David acted. He thrust the broken spear upward with all his strength. The shard pierced through the crack in Vera's armor, striking her side. The champion froze. Her eyes wide, she gasped, dropping her staff. Then she fell to her knees. The crowd erupted in chaos, shouts of shock, roars of disbelief, cries of anger. David crawled to his feet, shaking, staring at what he had done. No, I didn't mean to," he whispered. But it was too late. The champion had fallen. The elder raised her staff, her voice booming above the noise. "The human has defeated the champion. By law he is chosen." The crowd screamed. Some pounded their weapons in rage. Others bowed their heads in acceptance. But the loudest voices came from the females in the stands, their glowing eyes fixed on David, whispering together, "Only his genes can save us." David's blood ran cold. He did not understand their words, but he felt the weight of their stares. He shook his head, whispering, "I don't want this. I didn't ask for this." Yet the law of the Amazons was clear. The chosen had been decided. The stranger, the outsider, the human had become their future. The drums stopped, the arena fell silent, and for the first time the Amazons bowed their heads to him. The champion was defeated. The chosen moment had arrived. The declaration. The arena was silent. The fire still burned, smoke rising into the dark jungle sky. David stood in the circle, swaying, his chest heavy with every breath. The champion Vera lay on the sand, defeated, her armor cracked, her body still. For the first time in their history, a champion had fallen to an outsider. The Amazons stared in disbelief. Some shouted in rage, pounding their fists against the stone. Others whispered in awe, their glowing eyes fixed on the bloodied human. The silence broke when the elder raised her golden staff. Her voice echoed like thunder. "The trial has ended. The champion has fallen. The victor is human." The crowd gasped. Some refused to believe. Others began to chant, slow, uncertain at first, then louder. "Victor! Victor! Victor!" David shook his head, his voice weak. No, I didn't come here to fight. I didn't want this." But the elder ignored him. She lifted the staff higher, her eyes burning with strange fire. "By the law of the Amazons, the victor is not only warrior, he is chosen. His blood is strong. His seed will shape the future." The word struck David like a blade. His body froze, his mind spinning. Seed, shape the future? What does that mean? The crowd roared, the truth spreading through them like fire. The human is chosen. The human will be breeding male. David staggered back, shaking his head. No, that's not me. I don't belong here." But the guards stepped forward, bowing low before him. One spoke in a deep voice. "Chosen one, the law binds you. You are ours now. You are father of tribes." David's breath caught. His stomach twisted. He looked up at the rows of Amazons watching him. Their glowing eyes were not filled with hate now. They were filled with hunger, with expectation, with belief. The warrior women whispered together, their voices carrying across the fire. Only his genes can save us. The stars have sent him. He is chosen. David stumbled back until his heels hit the stone wall of the circle. He whispered to himself, "This can't be real. I just wanted water. I just wanted to live." But reality was sharp and heavy. The Amazons were not asking, they were declaring. His victory was no longer about survival. It was about destiny. The elder stepped closer, lowering her staff until the golden tip touched the sand at his feet. "Human, you fought. You killed, you bled. The trial is law, and the law is older than the stars. You cannot refuse." David shook his head violently. "No. No, I won't. I can't." But the crowd drowned his words, chanting louder and louder. "Father of tribes. Father of tribes. Father of tribes." The females began to rise from their seats. Row by row they stood, their glowing eyes locked on him. Some smiled faintly, others stared coldly. But all of them bowed their heads. It was not a choice, it was surrender. They had accepted him, he was theirs. David's chest tightened. His hands trembled as he whispered, "I don't want this. I never asked for this." But no one listened. The fire burned higher. The voices roared louder, and the law of the Amazon sealed his fate. The drums began again, slow and heavy. The elder lifted her staff once more, her words final. "Let it be known across the stars, this human is chosen. His blood will bind our future. His seed will save our kind." The crowd roared in madness. Weapons clashed against stone. Voices screamed his new title. The sound shook the arena. And in the middle of it all, David fell to his knees. His eyes wide, his breath shallow. He whispered almost to himself, "They don't see me as a man. They see me as a prize and a curse, a future I never wanted." The Amazons did not hear. They only chanted louder, and the jungle itself seemed to echo with their voices. The human was chosen. The human was father of tribes. The declaration was complete. The shocking reward. The arena was still echoing with chants. The voices of the Amazons rose like a storm. "Father of tribes. Father of tribes." David knelt in the sand, trembling, his mind spinning. He had fought only to survive. But survival had become something worse now, by their law. He was no longer just a man. He was theirs. The elder lowered her golden staff and stepped closer. Her voice rang with finality. "The human is chosen. His blood is strong. His seed will renew us. The future is his to shape." The crowd cheered again, but David shook his head, his voice breaking. "No. No, I never wanted this. I only wanted to live. I only wanted to go home." The words vanished under the roar of the tribe. To them, refusal did not exist. The guards entered the fire circle and bowed low before him. One spoke in a deep, respectful voice, "The chosen one. The females await. Come, claim what is yours." David staggered to his feet. His legs weak, his chest heavy, he whispered, "Claim? What do you mean, claim?" But even before the guard could answer, movement caught his eye. From the stands, the Amazons began to descend. Row by row, the women walked toward him, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Some carried flowers. Others' weapons held downward in ritual respect. They were not enemies now, they were his reward. The first woman stopped before him and knelt, her voice soft but steady. "You are father of tribes now. We bow to you." Another followed, then another, until dozens of warrior women stood before him, kneeling in the sand. Their voices whispered together, "Only your blood can save us. Only your seed can bind us." David's heart pounded in terror. He stumbled back, shaking his head. "No. Stop. I'm not your father. I'm not your savior." But their eyes shone with belief, with hunger, with certainty. They did not hear his denial, they only saw destiny. The elder spoke again, her words heavy with law. "The trial is older than the stars. The victor becomes breeding male. You cannot escape this. If you refuse life itself." The crowd roared with approval. Weapons pounding against stone. The sound shook the ground beneath his feet. David covered his ears, whispering, "This is a nightmare. I can't. But the Amazon stepped closer. One touched his arm gently, her eyes glowing in the firelight. "Do not fear. You are chosen. The stars have decided." Another reached for his hand. "You will give us strength. You will give us life." David ripped his hand away, panic rising in his chest. "I'm just a man. I don't want this. I never asked for this." The females did not move back, they only whispered louder. "Chosen, chosen, chosen." The circle of fire trapped him again. There was no escape, not from their law, not from their belief. His survival had become his prison. In the shadows of the arena, not everyone was silent. Some Amazons glared with hatred. To them, this was an insult. That a weak human would be chosen above their strongest warriors. They clenched their fists, whispering words of betrayal. We will not kneel. We will not bow. We will kill him when the time is right. David felt the weight of both sides, one half worshipping him as their savior, the other half plotting his death. He was caught between desire and hatred, between prophecy and execution. The elder struck her staff into the sand. The flames rose higher, bathing the arena in red light. Let it be sealed. The human is father of tribes. Tonight he begins the path of our future. The Amazons bowed lower. The guards pressed their spears to the ground in salute. The drums began again, slow and heavy, and David fell to his knees, covering his face. His whisper was lost in the roar. Please, somebody wake me. I don't want this. But no one answered. The shocking reward had been given, and the galaxy would hear of it soon. The galactic echo, the fire in the arena, had died down. The chants of the Amazons still rang in the night air like thunder. But outside the jungle walls, beyond the misty skies, the galaxy itself had already begun to stir. David sat alone in a stone chamber. Guards knelt outside his door, bowing every time they looked at him. To them, he was no longer just a man. He was the father of tribes, the chosen male, the one whose blood would save their kind. But to David, he was still only a lost traveler who had wanted water. He pressed his hands to his face, whispering, "This isn't me. I can't be what they want. I can't be what they've declared." But outside his prison of honor, messages had already flown. Messengers on winged beasts soared across the skies. Others lit fires atop tall stone towers, signals meant for distant clans. And beyond the jungle, ships carried word to the stars. The news spread like fire across dry grass. On the desert world of Vrax, a council of warlords gathered. One slammed his fist on the table, his voice sharp. A human has been chosen as father of Amazons. Lies, they cannot be serious. Another leaned forward, his eyes cold. It is no lie. The reports are clear. He defeated their champion. He carries the right of seed, the warlords murmured. Some with laughter, others with unease. For them, it was not about destiny, it was about danger. On the ocean world of Thalessa, alien priestesses lit their temples in blue fire. They sang hymns in languages older than stars. Their voices carried across waves and into the night. The human has risen. His blood is chosen. The stars have spoken. To them, it was prophecy, the sign they had waited for. And in the shadow of deep space, silent watchers stirred, spies, assassins, rulers of empires who had no love for Amazons. They whispered in the dark, "If one human can do this, what will happen when more arrive? We cannot allow this kind to rise." The first ripples of war had begun. Some prepared fleets, some prepared shrines, but all prepared to act. Back in the Amazon city, the females prepared for a grand feast. They danced, sang, and sharpened blades in honor of the new father of tribes. But in the chamber, David sat with his head in his hands, the whispers of the crowd still echoing in his mind. Only his genes can save us. Only his seed can bind us. He looked at the stone door. Guarded by warriors, he thought of running, of escaping into the jungle, but deep inside he knew the truth. Even if he ran, the galaxy would still know his name. The Amazons had given him a crown of fire, and the galaxy would either worship him or burn him for it. The elder entered his chamber, her golden staff glowing faintly in the dim light. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. "You do not understand now, human, but you will. This fate is larger than you. The stars chose you because they must. Without you, our kind dies. With you we live." David looked up at her, his eyes tired, hollow. "I'm not a savior. I'm not a father. I'm just a man who crashed here by mistake." But the elder shook her head. "The galaxy does not believe in mistakes. It believes in destiny." That night, the stars above the jungle glowed brighter, not because of fate, but because countless eyes across the galaxy were already fixed on Earth's child. Some with hope, some with fear, and some with bloodlust. David lay on the stone floor, staring at the ceiling. His whisper was faint but filled with dread. "This is only the beginning, and the whole galaxy is coming for me." The jungle outside was quiet, but far beyond the quiet, the galactic echo had begun. And soon, Its roar would shake the stars. The first betrayal. The night after the trial was heavy with silence. The city of the Amazons glowed with torches, their voices still chanting in the streets. Father of tribes. Father of tribes. To them it was a night of celebration, but inside the stone chamber, David lay awake, his body was weak, his mind restless. Every cheer outside felt less like honor and more like chains. He whispered to himself, I should have died. I was never meant to win. Now they've trapped me in their law. But beyond the cheers, hidden in the shadows of the city, not everyone was celebrating. In a dark hall away from the feast, a small group of Amazon warriors gathered. Their faces were hard, their voices low. One slammed her fist on the table. This is shame. Our champion was defeated by a weak outsider. And now they bow to him? Another hissed, the elder calls him father of tribes. She says his seed will save us, but I will not give myself to a human. The others murmured in agreement. Their eyes burned with anger. If law cannot protect us, then shadow will. The human must die. Back in his chamber, David sat against the wall. A guard stood at the door, tall and silent. But he noticed something strange. The guard avoided his eyes, shifting nervously as if she knew something. As if danger was near, David's breath quickened. His instincts screamed, though he could not explain why. He stood, pressing his back to the wall. That was when he heard it. A faint scrape of metal against stone. The sound of a blade being drawn, the door creaked open. Not with ceremony, not with respect, but with silence, 3 Amazons slipped inside, their eyes sharp, their weapons glinting in the firelight. They did not bow. They did not call him father of tribes. They only whispered one word. Intruder. David's chest tightened. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, wait, I don't want this. I didn't choose this. But their faces showed no mercy. To them, he was not chosen. He was an insult, a stain on their honor. The first warrior lunged, her blade aimed at his throat. David stumbled aside, the weapon cutting the air. He fell hard, grabbing a broken piece of pottery from the floor. Desperation gave him strength. He swung wildly. Striking her hand, the blade clattered to the ground. The other 2 hissed, circling him. Their movements were sharp, their eyes full of fury. David's heart pounded. He whispered, They don't all want me. Some want me dead. The fight was chaos. He ducked, rolled, swung with the pottery shard. He had no training, no skill, only fear and instinct, but somehow he managed to stay alive. His clumsy survival looked like defiance, and to the Amazons, every second he lived deepened their rage. The door burst open. The elder entered, her staff glowing with golden fire. Guards stormed in behind her. The 3 assassins froze, their blades half raised. The elder's voice shook the chamber. Stop! The law is sealed. To touch the chosen is death. The assassins dropped their weapons, bowing their heads, but their eyes never left David. They glared at him with hate. One whispered under her breath, We will not bow forever. Your blood will stain this city before long. The guards dragged them away, their voices lost in the noise of the celebration outside. But David stood frozen, his chest heaving, his hands trembling. He realized the truth. Not all Amazons accepted him. Not all would protect him. Some would rather kill him than call him father. The elder looked at him with sharp eyes. You see now, human? Strength brings followers, but also enemies. Your victory has divided us, and division invites war. David sank to the floor, his head in his hands. He whispered, I didn't want this. I never wanted this. Now even they want me dead. The elder raised her staff slowly. Her voice was calm, almost grim. Then you must live, because if you die, their whispers will become fire, and the galaxy will burn. Outside, the chant still shook the city, but beneath the noise of honor, the first betrayal had already been born, and in the shadows, knives were being sharpened. The chosen was not only savior, he was also a target.